6 weeks after her twins disappeared, a homeless woman told her to check the KFC bathroom. 6 weeks, 42 days, 1,008 hours of sleepless nights, unanswered questions, and a mother's heart breaking into pieces with every passing moment. That's how long Emma Keyes had been searching for her twin daughters, Freya and Sophia, who vanished without a trace on an ordinary California morning. The world outside seemed to move on. Cars honking, people rushing, the sun rising and setting as if nothing was wrong. But inside Emma's mind, time had stopped. Every flyer she posted, every phone call she made, every stranger she begged for help became part of her desperate quest to bring her girls home. But just when hope felt like it was slipping through her fingers, something extraordinary happened. A homeless woman named Maggie, sitting near the entrance of a KFC, looked up at Emma and said 5 words that would change everything. Check the bathroom. They were there. Emma wasn't sure what made her stop that day. She had driven past this KFC dozens of times before, handing out missing posters and pleading with anyone who would listen. But this time, something about Maggie caught her eye. Maybe it was the way the woman sat huddled against the wall, clutching a cardboard sign, or maybe it was the flicker of recognition in her eyes when she saw the pictures of Freya and Sophia on the flyers. Whatever it was, Emma couldn't ignore it. And so, she approached Maggie, not just out of curiosity, but because deep down, she believed even the smallest clue could lead her closer to her daughters. What Maggie told her next sent chills down Emma's spine. She described 2 little girls in matching blue Hello Kitty dresses, playing by the counter, laughing softly. And then came the detail that hit Emma like a punch to the gut. They went into the bathroom together. As Emma rushed into the KFC, her heart pounding louder than ever, you could feel the weight of 6 weeks' worth of desperation pressing down on her shoulders. This wasn't just another dead end. This was different. For the first time since her daughters disappeared, Emma had a tangible lead, a thread to pull on in the tangled mess of uncertainty. Inside the restaurant, the air smelled faintly of fried chicken and cleaning supplies. But Emma barely noticed. Her focus was razor sharp as she pushed open the door to the women's restroom. Stall after stall, she checked frantically, praying for some sign, any sign, that her girls had been here. At first there was nothing, just empty trash bins and cold tile floors. But then, tucked behind one of the bins, where no one would think to look, Emma found it. A pair of glasses. Familiar glasses. Glasses engraved with the name Freya Keyes. The discovery left Emma breathless, tears streaming down her face as she clutched the glasses tightly in her hand. It wasn't just evidence. It was proof. Proof that her daughters had been here, alive, within these very walls. But it also raised more questions than answers. Who had brought them here? Why? And most importantly, where were they now? Detective Maya Kuda arrived shortly afterward, her calm demeanor masking the urgency of the situation. Together, they reviewed the security footage from the day the girls went missing, piecing together fragments of truth hidden in grainy camera angles. On screen, they saw Freya and Sophia being led toward the restroom by a tall man in a hoodie. His face was obscured, but his limp stood out immediately, a limp that eerily reminded Emma of someone close to her family. Back at home, surrounded by Daniel's boisterous relatives during their weekly game night, Emma couldn't shake off the unsettling connection forming in her mind. Dyson, Daniel's older brother, had always been kind to Freya and Sophia, showering them with gifts and attention. He loved them like they were his own, often joking that he didn't need kids of his own because he already had the best nieces. Yet now, as Emma replayed the events of the day, the limp, the hoodie, the cryptic behavior, She couldn't unsee the resemblance between the man in the footage and Dyson. Was it possible? Could someone so familiar, so trusted, be capable of such betrayal? These thoughts swirled in her head as she lay awake beside Daniel, unable to sleep, unwilling to confront the growing suspicion gnawing at her soul. The next morning, armed with determination and dread, Emma decided to visit Dyson. She needed answers, clarity, anything to ease the storm raging inside her. Standing outside his house, she rehearsed her approach over and over again, trying to find the right balance between accusation and concern. When Dyson opened the door, his surprise at seeing her so early was palpable. Their conversation started innocently enough, but soon cracks began to show. Dyson's evasive answers, his nervous glances, the gun he pulled from the drawer, all of it pointed to a truth too horrifying to accept. In that moment, as Emma stared down the barrel of the weapon, her worst fears came crashing down around her. But just when all seemed lost, the sound of footsteps echoed behind them. The door burst open, revealing Daniel wielding a shovel, ready to protect his family at any cost. And yet, even as Dyson lay unconscious on the floor and the police sirens wailed in the distance, the story was far from over. Questions lingered in the air, heavy and unresolved. Why did Dyson do this? How could someone so deeply embedded in their lives turn against them? And perhaps most hauntingly, what toll would this betrayal take on Emma, Daniel, and their precious daughters? As the family held each other close, reunited but forever changed, one thing was certain: the road to healing would be long and fraught with challenges. But for now, they were together. And sometimes, that's all that matters. Or is it? Stay tuned to find out what happens next. As Emma sat in the car, gripping the steering wheel tightly, her mind raced with questions that had no answers yet. Dyson, the man who had always been there for family game nights, who joked about being the favorite uncle, and who treated Freya and Sophia like his own daughters, was now at the center of her darkest suspicions. How could this be real? The limp, the hoodie, the way he'd acted when she mentioned the footage, it all pointed to something sinister. But Emma couldn't let herself jump to conclusions without proof. Not when it came to family. Not when it came to Daniel's brother. Their drive to Dyson's house felt endless. Every stoplight seemed to stretch into infinity, each red glow mocking her hesitation. She thought about calling Detective Kudo again, but stopped herself. If Dyson was innocent, involving the police prematurely could ruin their family forever. But if he wasn't, Emma shuddered at the thought. What kind of monster would take two little girls from their home? And why? Was it revenge? Jealousy? Something darker? When she finally pulled up to Dyson's quiet suburban street, Emma noticed his car parked outside instead of in the garage. It was such a small detail, almost insignificant, but after everything she'd seen today, nothing felt coincidental anymore. Her heart pounded as she stepped out of the car, forcing a smile onto her face as Dyson emerged from the garage. He limped slightly, just as she'd observed the night before. Seeing it now, in person, sent chills down her spine. "Good morning, Dyson," she said, trying to keep her voice casual. "I was in the neighborhood and thought I'd stop by." Dyson looked surprised, but quickly recovered, offering a warm smile. "Emma, what brings you here so early?" His tone was friendly enough, but Emma caught the flicker of unease in his eyes. "I wanted to thank you again for sharing the girls' photos on your social media," she replied smoothly, following him inside. "You've been such a huge help." As they entered the living room, Emma scanned the space, looking for anything unusual. Her gaze landed on a black hoodie draped over a chair, similar to the one worn by the man in the KFC footage. Her stomach churned. But she forced herself to stay calm. They settled on the couch, and Dyson offered her coffee. While he busied himself in the kitchen, Emma's mind raced. This was her chance to get answers. When he returned with 2 mugs, she decided to go straight for it. "Dyson," she began, her voice steady, despite the storm brewing inside her. "Do you remember where you were the day the girls disappeared?" The question hit him like a punch. Dyson froze, the mug trembling. In his hand, coffee sloshed dangerously close to the rim. I was at the soccer club, wasn't I? That's where I hurt my knee." Emma's heart sank. His answer didn't match what she'd pieced together. "We found some security footage of the girls at a KFC that day. Dyson." The man with them had a limp, very similar to yours. For a split second, panic flashed across Dyson's face. Then anger replaced it. "What are you saying, Emma? You can't possibly think I say I had something to do with this." But Emma saw through his act. "I don't know what to think, Dyson. I need to know the truth. Where were you really that day?" Dyson stood abruptly, his face twisted with fury and fear. "I think you should leave now, Emma. This is ridiculous. I would never hurt the girls." Instead of backing down, Emma pressed further. "Then why won't you give me a straight answer? Why are you hiding things in your garage? What's going on, Dyson?" That's when everything escalated. Dyson lunged for a drawer, pulling out a gun. Emma froze, her blood turning to ice. "Don't move," he growled, his voice low and menacing. "You shouldn't have come here, Emma. You shouldn't have asked questions." Her mind raced. She raised her hand slowly, trying to buy time. "Dyson, please. Whatever's going on, we can figure this out. Just tell me where the girls are. I know you must have your reasons." His expression wavered, a mix of remorse and desperation crossing his face. "They're fine," he muttered. "They're safe. But if you don't stay quiet, if you don't do exactly what I say, that might change. Do you understand?" Emma nodded, her heart pounding so hard she thought it might burst. Dyson motioned with the gun, directing her toward the garage door. As he reached to open it, Emma's mind whirled with possible escape plans. But before she could act, the unthinkable happened. The door burst open from the other side, revealing Daniel wielding a shovel. In one swift motion, Daniel swung the tool, connecting with the back of Dyson's head. The gun clattered to the floor as Dyson crumpled, unconscious. Emma stood in shock, her eyes darting between her husband and the man lying lifeless on the ground. "How did you know?" she whispered, her voice trembling. Daniel dropped the shovel, rushing to embrace her. "I saw your note and something felt off. I checked the security footage and saw how you reacted to Dyson's limp last night. I put it together and came as fast as I could." As Daniel held her, Emma's legs gave out, the adrenaline leaving her body in a rush. They sank to the floor together, both trembling. "He said they're here. They're safe," Emma gasped. Daniel nodded, already pulling out his phone to call 911. Meanwhile, Emma crawled toward the garage door with shaking hands. When she pushed it open, she saw them, Freya and Sophia, huddled on mattresses in the corner. They looked scared and confused, but alive and unharmed. "Mommy!" Freya's small voice broke the silence. Emma sobbed, gathering her daughters in her arms. "It's okay, babies. Mommy's here. You're safe now." As sirens wailed in the distance, Emma held her girls close, hardly daring to believe that this nightmare was finally over. Daniel joined them, wrapping his arms around his family, tears streaming down his face. The road ahead would be long and difficult. There would be questions to answer, trauma to process, and a family forever changed by betrayal. But in that moment, reunited at last, Emma felt a glimmer of hope. They were together again, and together they could face whatever came next. But even as relief washed over her, Emma couldn't shake the feeling that the truth was far more complicated than she realized. What had driven Dyson to this point, and how much of their family's history had been hidden beneath layers of secrets. As the police led Dyson away in handcuffs, Emma couldn't help but feel a strange mix of relief and sorrow. The man who had once been part of their family dinners, who had laughed with them and loved her daughters like his own, was now a stranger, a shadow of someone they thought they knew. Detective Kuda stayed behind to take statements, her expression softer than usual, as she watched Emma hold Freya and Sophia close. "You did everything right," Maya said gently. "Your strength brought them home," but Emma wasn't ready to celebrate just yet. There were still unanswered questions gnawing at her mind. Why had Dyson done this? What could possibly drive him to such extremes? As the hours passed, details began to emerge. During questioning, Dyson confessed. Not out of remorse, but out of bitterness. He revealed that years ago, he and Daniel had both wanted to adopt children, but only Daniel succeeded. Dyson felt abandoned by fate and resentful toward his brother for moving on, while he remained stuck in what he called a broken dream. Over time, his jealousy turned into obsession. When he learned about Freya and Sophia, he convinced himself that they should have been his daughters. That night, consumed by anger and loneliness, he made the unthinkable decision to take them. The revelation hit Emma hard. It wasn't just about greed or malice. It was about pain, loss, and misplaced love. She thought about all the times Dyson had shown up at their house with gifts for the girls, how he'd played games with them during family gatherings. Had those moments been genuine, or had they always been calculated? The truth was messy, tangled, in emotions too complex to untangle completely. Daniel struggled even more with the betrayal. For days after Dyson's arrest, he barely spoke, retreating into himself, as if trying to process the weight of what had happened. One evening, as the family sat together in their living room, Daniel finally broke his silence. "I never saw it," he admitted, his voice heavy with guilt. "All those years we spent arguing about stupid stuff, money, work, whatever, and I didn't realize my own brother was drowning. If I'd paid attention." Emma reached out, placing a hand on his shoulder. "This isn't your fault, Daniel. You can't blame yourself for someone else's choices. We can't change what happened, but we can choose how we move forward." Freya and Sophia, resilient as ever, seemed to bounce back faster than anyone expected. They talked openly about their time in Dyson's garage, describing how scared they were, but also how much they missed their parents. At first, Emma worried that the trauma would linger, shaping their lives in ways she couldn't predict. But over time, with therapy and support, the girls began to heal. Their laughter returned, filling the house with light again. Still, the experience left an indelible mark on the entire family. Emma found herself looking at strangers differently now, noticing the small acts of kindness that might otherwise go unnoticed. Maggie, the homeless woman who had pointed her toward the KFC bathroom, became a symbol of hope for her, a reminder that help could come from the most unexpected places. Emma started volunteering at a local shelter, determined to give back to people like Maggie who had unknowingly saved her daughters' lives. Detective Kuda checked in regularly, ensuring the family was coping well. One day, she brought news that offered a sense of closure. Dyson had accepted a plea deal, sparing the family the ordeal of a trial. Though justice would be served, Emma knew the real healing wouldn't happen in a courtroom. It would happen at home, around the dinner table, through shared moments and quiet conversations. Months later, life began to settle into a new rhythm. The scars were still there, faint but visible, reminders of the 6 weeks that changed everything. Yet amidst the pain, there was gratitude. For each other, for the community that rallied around them, and for the second chance they'd been given. On the anniversary of the girls' return, Emma organized a small gathering at their house. Friends, neighbors, and even some of the officers who had worked tirelessly on the case came together to celebrate resilience and hope. As Emma stood in the backyard, watching Freya and Sophia chase fireflies under the summer sky, she felt a deep sense of peace wash over her. Life wasn't perfect, and it probably never would be. But perfection wasn't the goal. It was connection, love, and the courage to keep going no matter what. That night, as the stars twinkled above, Emma whispered a silent thank you to the universe for guiding her to the KFC bathroom, for bringing Maggie into her path, for reuniting her family when all seemed lost, and most importantly, for teaching her that even in the darkest moments, there is always a glimmer of light waiting to lead you home.